These are maple plugs. They're like a mini cork. And the small end's 3/8 of an inch in diameter. And where I have counterbore holes that are deeper than countersunk holes that are flush to the surface, you tap that home and that finishes the edge. Now, these feet are longer, but it's still not cross-grain. The grain is harmonious on the feet and on the glued up top. I want you to look at this. Okay, and that's a cutting board. And that's a hard maple center for the cutting and the sides for your foods, for your layout. So life's too short to have ugly cutting boards. Now to do that, we need a bandsaw, we need some wood. I've got a beautiful piece of figured hard maple right here for the middle. And then on this live edge chunk of air-dried walnut, I've had this for 20 years, couldn't figure out what to do with it. It has a knot in the middle, and you cannot have knots and checks in cutting boards, because if you do, what happens is that can be a place that food can get into and bacteria can grow, so it has to be solid wood. The other thing is on live edge, you can't have any bark, as pretty as it is, not when you're using it to serve food. So, okay, now to work with this piece of walnut, I'm using that hold fast to hold it down, and we're going to get that bark off. No bark on cutting boards. And so you lay the bevel down, just like that, and you chisel away the bark. I'm trying not to get into the wood. It's all going to be sanded down, and you get the bark off, okay? So that's important. And then what I do is I use a good rule and a white marking pencil. White marks on dark wood, a whole lot easier to work with. And we're going to release the knot right here, because that can't be used in food contact. And to do that, we're going to use the bandsaw. And I'm going to set this up with a 3/4 inch blade. The wider the blade, the better the cut, okay, when you're doing a straight cut. And so with that, this is 3 teeth per inch on a 3/4 inch blade. And this is unpowered and locked off so it can't accidentally start up. Let me just show you how easy it is to tune up your bandsaw. This is important, because if you're going to use a bandsaw, and it's a go-to tool in any shop, I have to release the tension of the blade. That's right there. Now I take the blade off, like so. Ease it right off. Remove the leveling pin for the table. And this is kind of a handy trick to know. You put your hands like you're holding a lunch tray. You twist them opposite directions, and you can fold up your blade, just like that. And now we'll bring up the 3/4 inch blade. And you want to buy a good blade. That's key on a bandsaw. Most people buy a bandsaw and they think the blade on it's going to last forever. They get dull. And once they're dull, be sure to buy a good one. Good steel, that's key. Okay, so now I have to bring that up and on, being careful with it all. And have to make some adjustments here. Ease it up onto the tires. Looking good like that. Now I have to back the tire down a bit, like that. Bring the blade up and on. Adjust the no-tool blade supports, the bearing, the toolless blade supports right here. And now what I can do is put tension back on it. Throw the tension arm up, bring it up, and then I have to track the blade. Now, when I spin this, I always keep my finger on the outside of the upper wheel. Never on the inside like that, okay? That's for safety. Do you hear anything right now? No, and that's the way it's supposed to be. Nothing should be touching that blade. And to track it, so that the center of the blade is on the center of the top of the tire, I just crank this knob on the back. If I want the blade to come forward, I crank the knob towards me. If I want the blade to go back, I crank it away from me. Now that's perfect right there, and I lock it in place. Now, how do you tension the blade? Wrong question. What you have to do right now, I'm going to crank this up just a bit, and I'm going to lock the column. And again, you don't hear metal on metal. It's free. So what I'm going to do, with decent tension on it right now, I'm going to add a little bit more. Okay, and the scale is only going to get me in the ballpark. I'll show you how to use your fingers with it unplugged to determine exactly what you want. So I'm going to bring the side bearings up and just gently kiss a blade well behind the valley of the gullet. Okay, and then I bring forward the thrust bearing until it almost touches, but not quite. So now I'll spin it, and that's perfect right there. And I have to do the same thing below the table to control that blade. And most people don't go below the table. They think, oh, I got that taken care of above. Well, no, same thing below that's up above. And I love the fact that I don't have to go out and grab any wrenches to adjust those bearings. That means you're going to do them the right way. Now that's good. Swing the door up and on. Guard up, locked in place. Everything's locked there. Leveling key in the cast iron plate. Locks back in, keeps everything flush and smooth. Swing this guard shut, lock it in place. And now, as I spin it, you can hear metal on metal, except it's the bearings rolling. So here's the test drive right now. Everything's good. And remember, I told you I was going to tell you how to tension it. Now watch, when I put good side pressure on that blade, about 20 pounds of pressure, that shouldn't flex more than 1/16 of an inch. If it does, add a little bit more tension. And then at the end of the job, make sure you back the tension off at the end of the day when it's not running, when it's unplugged, and you're in business. Now, let's make some cuts. Here we go. Safety gear up and on. These are safety glasses. That's important. Hearing protection. I'll turn on dust collection. And another thing for control and safety, you want this guide block assembly, which is what this is called, or guide bearing assembly, to be within 1/4 of an inch of the surface of the board, the top surface. That's going to take flex out of the blade, and that'll give you a straighter cut. So, dust collection on, we'll make those cuts, and then it's over to the jointer.